All right, Makopa, you can call us to order.
All right, everybody, welcome to the next Sustainability Advisory Board meeting. It's 5:32 on Wednesday, November 10th. So we will call the meeting to order. Jasmine just informed me that it looks like we have quorum. So if we have to vote anything tonight, then we will be able to do that. Let's see, what was our... So tonight, I'll have Jasmine explain the meeting procedures for Zoom and people in person here. So go ahead, Jasmine.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jasmine Moore. I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Lawrence. And I will be running the Zoom portion of the meeting tonight and facilitating that piece and interaction. So we have 2 board members in the room, in the City Commission room. And if other members of the public show up, I will help to make sure that they can interact with you all as well. For those that are on Zoom, I will just remind you to go ahead and mute yourself unless you are ready to actively weigh in. For members of the public, if you would give me an indication that you want to give public comment by using the Zoom feature to raise your hand or turning on your camera so that when I invite you to give public comment, that will be another indication that you're ready to participate. Everyone will stay muted for the most part. If you come off of mute and there's some background noises, I may mute you so that we can continue on the discussion without distractions. There will be opportunities to give public comment on the agenda items listed, and as well as if you are going to give public comment on an item that is not on the agenda, then we would ask that you wait until the end of the meeting to provide that public comment. If you are on the phone, I think we have maybe one person on the phone, you will need to press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. So if you are going to participate, then you will need to do that before you can join the conversation. So another reminder, if you would just announce your name, and if you're a board member, announce that as well each time you speak, so that those that are just listening into the meeting without the visuals can keep track of who's speaking. For any action that is taken, there will need to be a roll call vote and a verbal indication from each member. Right now, there are not any action items on the agenda, but if there is something that you all decide to take action on, that will be necessary. So with that, I will turn it back over to the chair for the first agenda item, and let me know if you would like me to introduce that.
Okay. So this is Makakwa Chair. It doesn't look like we have any minutes to approve from our last meeting. Glad to have Jasmine back though. And so it looks like on our first agenda item, we have a presentation and a discussion for commercial utility scale solar energy conversion systems. And yes, I would love for Jasmine to introduce that to us.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. This is a topic that has been discussed by the Planning Commission in the past months and some other people in the community. And so we thought it would be helpful for this group to be informed about the conversation related to establishing zoning regulations for commercial and utility scale solar energy conversion systems. And so we've invited Mary Miller, who is a city county planner, to come and just share with this group the current status of those conversations, and also share some other opportunities to get involved. So Mary, I will turn it over to you. And let me know if you need to share your screen and I can make that happen.
I did not bring any visuals.
Okay.
Mary Miller, planner, and I'm currently working with an ad hoc committee of the Planning Commission. We took the draft standards to the Planning Commission in June, I believe, and they returned it to us with some directions for changes. So we took it back in August, and at that time they established an ad hoc committee of 4 commissioners. 3 of them, I believe, are on the meeting today. Jim Carpenter is the presiding officer, and then we have Karen Lilly and Sharon Ashworth, and Gary Rexroad is another member. He's just not here today. And so zoning and code staff and myself and the ad hoc committee members have been working since the August meeting. And basically what we're trying to do is to develop standards before any applications are submitted. So we know there are people interested in submitting applications. They've agreed to wait and let us develop these standards. It'll just make everything go smoother. And as you noted, the standards are called commercial scale, commercial utility scale. Well, as you went through the process, members of the public mentioned it might be nice to have 5 acres, you know, the smaller kind of like cooperative systems. So we've actually included small scale solar energy conversion systems and the commercial utility scale. The standards will be pretty similar. There's a few things that only apply to the really larger ones. But if you're 5 acres and you're, for instance, a group of neighbors got together and decided they wanted to create their own electricity rather than just one person having their solar panels on their roof, they would go through the small scale. It would still require a CUP, and that can go up to 5 acres. And Baldwin City has a small system in their town that feel free to go look at it. If you call them, they'll probably give you a tour. I believe Evergy is the one that gave the tour for Karen, but she could tell you later. And you could see what one looks like. So I'll let some of the committee members talk about this a little further, and maybe we can just all chip in if you have questions. But our goal is to facilitate solar energy conversion, because it's very important, but we also want to protect the interests of the people living in the rural portion of the county. So we don't want something that's going to be too impactful. And we went through and developed a lot of standards. Some of the standards are basically telling the applicant what they need to give us. You know, we need all kinds of plans, we need reclamation plans, we need them to evaluate the situation, what kind of wildlife lives there, you know, what's going to be the impact of these systems, stormwater management. So the first part of our text amendment is basically telling them what plans we want from them so we can evaluate it. And we also have another section where we're looking at standards. And some of the standards we're looking at are things such as how far should a solar energy conversion system be from residences or from property lines. And the zoning code staff and myself went to, took a site visit to Butler County because they had a 20-acre solar system we wanted to look at. And we were quite surprised when we drove up on it because it was, you know, they're very low. They're about 15 feet tall, so they're not imposing structures. So from the road, they were very low key. However, if you live next door, that might be different because they were set back from the roads. But it was really interesting to go see one in person, and that way you got a good feel for what it was like. And so right now we're working with balancing, and we're trying to fine tune our regulations that we're recommending. And we've had a lot of meetings. We've invited a wildlife biologist from K-State because one of our concerns is with fencing. It needs to be fenced, but we'd like to make sure wildlife, you know, can still get through. We're not directing them all to the roadways. And so we're looking at the kind of fencing and what would be the impact on wildlife. Another thing we're looking at, well, we had grazing groups, and I was not at that meeting, but there are people that have associations where they graze sheep primarily. And so it's called agrovoltaic. So you're doing agriculture and the solar at the same time. Another way you can do the joint use is having pollinator plants. People can have bees. So we would really encourage that they do agriculture and solar at the same time. But if they don't, then one of our goals is that they do soil tests and they do plant crops, that would help maintain the health of the soil or even improve the health of the soil through the life of the solar farm. And have regular soil tests so we can evaluate, how is the soil health doing. And that way, it's more of a land bank. At some point, if you have a new technology and we don't need these large solar systems, that they could be taken down and we would have farmland that's in good shape, that's been preserved. And one of the issues is there a limit on how much solar farms, or people don't like that term, it's just hard for me to say solar energy conversion systems over and over, but I'll just say solar systems. Is there a limit to how much acreage we should have for a solar system in Douglas County? Should we limit each one? If you have 5 applications, should we limit each one to a certain acreage? Or should we kind of consider how much agricultural land we think we need in the county, how much open space, and how many acres we feel would be available? We don't have regulations like that for other uses. But I think the reason we're considering it is the first application they came forward is for a really large facility. And we hear they're thinking about 1,500 acres. And so that put the size in our mind, which normally that we probably would have thought we'll just deal with that on a case-by-case basis. And so those are some of the things we're looking at. And I know we've requested input from the Sustainability Advisory Board to the Commission, looking at our standards and definitely input to us if you see something we need to change based on what we're recommending. Some of the evaluations we're doing, some of our concerns with soil testing, chemicals. After talking to some of the experts, it doesn't appear they use a lot of chemicals, but we are putting standards in place that if a solar panel is broken, and it's not removed within a certain amount of time, that they do soil tests, so make sure no chemicals have leached into the soil. So that's kind of a summary of what we're looking at. And we can go in more depth if you have questions, but I think maybe Jim Carpenter might want to speak. He is our presiding officer on this amendment. And Jim, did you want to go ahead?
Well, thanks, Mary. I'd ask Karen and Sharon to open up their videos too. We might jump to them. But essentially tonight you're getting a preview of what we're going to be doing Monday night at the Planning Commission meeting. We have a whole night that we're only going to be discussing this matter. If you go to the agenda packet for Monday night, you'll see we're up to 203 pages. I'm assured we're going to have many more because there's going to be a lot more coming out, including all the communications we received and links to lots of articles we reviewed. But I'll tell you right now, the ad hoc committee has been pretty busy. We've been meeting once a week. We've had a couple of skips because of scheduling. Some of us have been out to 2 community meetings in the southeast part of the county where this the most public possible request is. And if any of you have been watching the paper, you'll see there's a company called NextEra that has proposed up to a 3,000 acre solar facility that crosses the county line between Douglas and Johnson County. So Johnson County is also involved in working on regulations right now. It's kind of amazing that we don't have any in the state yet. So we're kind of at the forefront of that. Some of us have been to the Johnson County planning meetings to see where they are. We've been watching their agenda and gathering information that way also. Our county staff has met with Johnson County planning staff and also with Sedgwick County planning staff in the Wichita area. We are trying to look at this from every perspective we can so we can have balanced regulations. We have competing land use values here. One is we all want to see an increase in solar energy production to reduce non-renewable resources use in the energy sector. But at the same time, Douglas County is blessed with some of the best agricultural land in the country. And so we have the competing value to maintaining agricultural land for food production now and in the future. And we also have the same ground, which is mostly flat and open, is where cities will want to expand first. And if you look at what's happening in Johnson County, the cities in Johnson County are also all pushing for keeping these facilities at least 3 miles away from their city borders so that they have room to expand. They seem to be emphasizing more their capacity to build more housing and to grow their cities. With our comp plan, as you know, we're looking at it from the other way. We're trying to reduce our footprint with higher density and be more sustainable into the future. So what we're looking from you is if you could look at this and kind of ask whatever questions you have about what we've been doing and where we think we're going. And we'd really want your input from your perspective as a commission. I know we've also are in communication with the Food Policy Council and others, and we're hoping that on November 18th, I guess next Thursday, that some of or all of you can join us at our ad hoc committee meeting where we can have a more in-depth discussion at that time, although we can do as much as you want tonight. I don't kind of losing track of how much materials come to us and how many meetings we've been going to. But just as an example, as Mary mentioned, we've met with a wildlife biologist, we've met with solar people, specifically sheep grazing. We've heard from engineers and companies that help build these facilities. We have, we just had a meeting last Thursday night with Douglas County Emergency Management and all the fire chiefs for the county, for all the townships and the cities, to get their input as to safety concerns. We've spent a lot of time just talking about fencing. I feel like we're still just scratching the surface, although we're getting a pretty good set of regulations put together. Thanks to the county staff, Mary and Tonya Voigt and Ben Harris and Dre Taylor have just been fantastic in collating what we've been doing and getting it into the reg form for the presentation. Our process now is we're going to present where we are to the full Planning Commission Monday night. We're going to take questions and comments from the rest of the commissioners and have a discussion. Then we'll take public comment for however long that goes. And then we'll have further discussion about, are we missing anything? What do we need to look at more? And we'll have more ad hoc meetings over the time. We're in no big rush to bring back the final version for a full vote with a recommendation to the city, to the county commission. So because we want to be very careful about this. What else? Oh, the process. Right now, we're only looking at the regulations under which a company could request what's called a conditional use permit. And those are a separate process altogether. So right now we're creating the rules like the county or the city development code to have for, the basic criteria for solar facilities such as this. We're hearing a lot of concern about a project by NextEra that no application has been filed because there are no rules for them to file an application under yet. So we're going to hear a lot about concerns about what the impact is on Southeast Douglas County Monday night, maybe to the detriment of not hearing from the other parts of the county where this could also be proposed. But things that we're looking at down there are, I don't know, it just goes on and on. How close to the houses, how many sides of a property can these be on? We've had questions about bird migrations. We've had all kinds of issues that have come up when we're trying to do the research on all of this. So I guess, I'll just ask Sharon or Karen if there's anything I've missed to add. It looks like Karen is in the midst of a thunderstorm, but we'll go for that and then just open it up and ask if anybody has questions that we can answer, because one of us is probably going to be able to tell you what we've looked at so far on a particular issue, or wait, that's a new issue that we have to look at. So we certainly are looking for as much input from as many different perspectives as possible. I would just add that after November 18th, I think we're having a work session with the County Commission to present where we are on December 1st. And then I think it's December 2nd that we're actually having representatives from potential applicants meeting with the ad hoc committee. Is that correct, Mary? Is that the one that's set for December 2nd?
I think it is, right. Yeah, right after that. And then I think we'll decide what else we need.
Right. And so there's still a lot of chance for input. This is by no way a done deal. And like I said, it'll probably come back to the Planning Commission for more public comment and possibly a vote on recommendations to the County Commission in January, February. I don't know how we'll make it by January because of the truncated periods with holidays, both this month and next month. So maybe February, and then after it goes to the County Commission again, it'll go through this round, and the County Commission will either send it back to us to do more or go forward with it. But that's another chance for public input at that time. So with that, Karen or Sharon, is there anything else that I missed that's blatantly missed right now?
Karen Willey, Planning Commissioner. No, Jim, you did a great job. Forgive my venue. I'm multitasking while my daughter's in an activity. The only thing I would add is that because we're looking at something that is such a large footprint, the only land use we have in the county that covers this kind of land would be cities or agriculture. It's huge. If we're talking about potentially 1,000 acres or per project, or all of that is just penciled in. We can talk about whatever scale we want to, but even minor issues with erosion or wildlife become large issues when you spread it out over such an area. So I think we're doing a great job, if I can say that. We're spending a lot of time in the community asking questions, listening, hearing people's questions, and researching those. So all of us have put in a lot of time with meetings, and we're really glad to have you guys take this up as a topic and ask us anything and ask staff anything, and then come back with other questions or give us a chance to answer those when we meet on the 18th. So thank you.
This is Makakwa Chair. Thank you guys so much for that presentation. I'm sure the board has a lot of questions. So yes, I'm going to open it up to the board to ask questions to this group.
Hi, this is Kay Johnson. I'm the Sustainability Advisory Board member, and I applaud Douglas County for spending the time to really thoughtfully look at these regulations. We really do want and need solar energy to be utilized as much as possible. So it's great that you're looking at the various competing interests and trying to come up with an equitable way to deal with this, because I do support the solar projects, and of course I support wildlife protection and agricultural development as well as housing development. So all of these are competing interests, but it sounds like you guys are really trying to look at all of the angles. So I really appreciate that from you, Planning Commissioner. So thank you very much for that. And that's all I have to say.
I was just going to mention one thing that came up when we were talking. A lot of people in the area, especially specialty crop growers, were very concerned about would the solar farm be putting herbicides or pesticides down, and that would impact their crops. And so there were two factors in that. Well, one was the extension office suggested we check with the state, because they said they didn't believe anyone except the state could regulate pesticides, and that is the case. So we had agreed, to prohibit certain pesticides, but we're not able to do that. But then the other proponent was, if we're having them plant just native grasses or short-term grasses, they really shouldn't have to use a lot of pesticides. And so I think naturally, we weren't able to do anything that would really reassure, and mostly like grape growers or people with crops that the drift would bother. There's nothing we can do to really reassure them that they won't apply anything, except we don't think it'd be necessary for what they'll be growing. But we did add a requirement that if they do apply pesticide, it has to be by a certified applicator, you know, someone who's certified to do that. So hopefully that would help. But that was one of the items that was brought up that we thought, well, yeah, we'll just include that in our standards. Then we found out that we just don't really have the ability to do that.
Well, I have some questions. This is Mako Quad Chair. I'm wondering about first of all, how did you cite this piece of land? It's not, is it a piece of land that could be used for agricultural purposes? And then how are the solar structures going to be built? If they're ground mounted, you're going to have to dig into the ground a certain amount and then, you know, I guess fill it back in. That's going to cause a lot of erosion, dust, air pollution. You know, when these are mounted, they're going to be movable, I'm assuming. They're going to be able to stand up against hailstorms or move for lighting reflection. You know, that affects the albedo of the land, you know, which could contribute to a heat island effect. These are some of the questions that I have. Have they been asked to you guys?
Yes, and you covered quite a lot there. Oh, sorry, Jim. Karen Willie, Planning Commissioner. As far as siting of the land, that's something that, as from the planning perspective, we don't have that much control over. So we get an application for a company that has chosen a particular piece of land, and then we have to work kind of within that request, which we can still, you know, ask for you know, certain parts of the land to be protected, and a lot of that is in the code. And any part of the county could be targeted for this. So we just have one project that's kind of been in the popular imagination because we've been hearing about it a little bit, but I think there are others in the works also we just know less about. As far as how they mount the structure for the panels, for the most part, their preference, which is also our preference, would be that they have soils where they can, they push these into the ground without having to excavate and put in concrete. Unfortunately, that also means that is more possible on better soils and less possible on, you know, steep soils or rocky soils. So there is a direct competition between land that's good for solar and also, you know, ecologically good for solar, that also is good for agriculture or housing, all of those things. It is definitely a competing value. You asked more questions, and those are all that I can remember. So I'll pass the rest to Jim.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission. We have had all those, I think most of those issues have come up from either public discussions or otherwise. We've been looking at what the impacts are as far as heat, glare, those types of things. Some of the materials that aren't posted with our packet yet, but will be, relate to some of those, such as the impact of hailstorms. The county code enforcement officer, Ben Harris, has been collecting, you know, horror story articles from around the country about solar, you know, hurricanes and voltage leakage into the ground and hailstorms and all of that, so that we can look at that. Part of that is, as Mary stated, the requirement that damaged solar panels, we have to get them identified and out. Most of the solar panels now are silicon based, so they aren't as toxic as as some of the old ones that had cadmium in it. But we are talking about requiring some soil testing at the start and conditions under which that could be done along the way, and then at decommissioning. This might be a good time just to put this whole thing into some context. For the last 3 years, at least one company has been getting private landowners to sign option leases for the use of their acreage for placement of these solar facilities. Those all have non-disclosure agreements in them, but the community out there kind of is pretty savvy about where these are and where they aren't. It's mostly the larger landowners are willing to lease at least some part of their acreage for this, mostly along the major transmission line that cuts through the county. And that's mostly because it's less expensive for the company to hook up. They won't have to build additional lines to get to the transmission lines. So, that's all happening before we even know that somebody's going to request a conditional use permit. Then we have the conditional use permit process where we will evaluate a specific request to make sure it's in compliance with our regulations, it's in the spirit of the comp plan, all the other things that we always look at with a conditional use permit, which has its own public input process in it. We're talking about up to a mild notice area that everybody will know what's happening. And then we'll get into specifics about, no, we don't like it here, we don't like it there. Another component we're going to be incorporating into this is on a separate track with the Planning Commission right now, which is a land evaluation survey process, which will evaluate agricultural land for productivity. And Karen is the head of that subgroup, and Sharon's also on that subgroup. I am not. But that's going to get plugged in. So when this happens, every parcel will be evaluated, and that information will be part of the conditional use permit package to be examined by the Planning Commission before any recommendations go to the County Commission. We know there's a lot of issues about decommissioning. Disposal of this, putting the land back to the way it was before. There is a hope that by using native grasses that we will actually create some carbon sinks out there, which could help. With native grasses, we might actually have some benefits to some of the pollinators and others by having areas that aren't disturbed with plowing and agricultural uses. However, we have these big structures, and we've been hearing that birds will like to nest in them. Depending on what grasses are on the ground, we could get increase of ground nesting birds that could be disturbed by maintenance of the grass at that time, because the companies want to keep the grasses below a certain height, not to interfere with the panels. As far as we know, most of these panels will track the sun throughout the day, so they will be moving as the sun progresses across the sky during the day. So there are a lot of things and a lot of information out there, and like I said, we keep getting more, and there will be an addition to our packet. So I think, if you can look at some of that, if you have more questions, and we're going to have another chance to meet with you next Thursday and have another discussion. The ad hoc committee ones, unlike this meeting, aren't recorded because we are ad hoc, so we can just talk about whatever you want to talk about, and without those types of concerns, which is a good way to do that. As long as you don't have more than a quorum if your commission present too, because we are bound by the COMA requirements. So I'm not sure who will show up, but just as long as you're under a quorum, we can have that discussion with all of you. So any other questions?
Well, this is Mako, Chair. Like you said, there's a lot of questions, and if you're going to have multiple meetings, I think that we can have further discussions with this as a SAB board. There's just a lot going into it, and I'm sure that there's a lot documented about other solar farms and some of their concerns, other municipality concerns. I have my concerns about pollinator habitat. You're talking about large structures and small pockets of pollinator habitat, but with the moving structures, I don't, that's definitely going to impede pollinator habitat. How tall are the structures, and how are you going to maintain the pollinator habitat if you're going to have somebody out there, maintaining it, or if you're going to, like you said, use herbicides and pesticides to do that. So there's a lot of questions that go into this environmental wise. I, as you know, on this board, I know that we can't, the city of Lawrence cannot require certain uses or certain practices to maintain these structures or to use herbicides or pesticides, but it's definitely something I wish that the ad hoc committee would make a priority, is being environmentally conscious, being sustainably conscious, whatever group gets hired for this, that to make sure that that's something that they prioritize too. I know it's not something that can be required, but it is definitely something that this board would like to see be prioritized in the zoning, in the permitting, in the building, in the maintaining. That's just something that we can learn from other people's mistakes. Lawrence can be a leader in these projects if we can think up front and in the beginning stages of this. So that's what I have to say. I plan on attending the meetings further, and we'll probably have questions during those meetings too. So if we don't have any more questions from the board, I think we can open it up for public comment at this time.
Chair, I think Stan unmuted, so I just wanted to check in. Stan, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, this is Stan Rasmussen, Sustainability Advisory Board member. I was just curious about the glint glare. You just kind of referred to it. Are you looking at that for impacts to the airport runways, impacts to homes? What are you looking at there on glint glare?
Karen Willie, Planning Commissioner. So in our understanding so far, and we are still looking into things, is that the amount of glare that used to be an issue with solar panels is a great deal less as the technology has improved and they're actually capturing more of that solar input. So it's in their interest to capture as much as they can with the panels and therefore reflect less. So I think it's a lot less of an issue than it has been. We're still looking to see what kind of impacts that might have on waterfowl that may see that and mistake it for water bodies. That's something we're looking into. We also, the Planning Commission serves as the airport advisory board also. So that's an issue that will come before us too. The areas that are being looked at along the, that I imagine will see the most interest are along the transmission lines that we have through the county, and there are some, I believe, that run along I-70, so that would be close to the Lawrence Airport. But we have a lot of rural airport strips also throughout the county. So it's something we'll have to look at, but we don't have.
Thank you.
And I wanted to mention Mary Miller, planner. One of the things I mentioned, there were a lot of studies and plans that we would require them to submit, and one is a glare hazard analysis. So when they submit it, they have to provide us information on how much glare would be provided by the solar panels. And zoning and code staff really brought that up because they've got a lot of complaints recently. Someone put in a tin-roofed barn and the neighbor was complaining because of the glare. And so we want to just make sure we're not just shining glare into the neighbor, even though we don't expect it to be overall a lot of glare. We just want to make sure it's not something that's going to affect people nearby.
On the heels of what Mary said, I would encourage everybody, this is Sharon Ashworth, Planning Commission, to read the draft that staff has come up with. Many of your questions are covered in that draft. So it would be great to have, if you were before our next meeting, to really go through those and see what has been addressed and what hasn't. But I think you'll find that a lot of your initial questions, you'll find information there. Staff has done an amazing job of covering most of these subjects.
And Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission, if you look at the packet, it's the first 26 pages will be a memo from Mary about everything that we've been doing. And then also the draft regulations, which show the changes that we've made over time. So at least that much. Most of the rest of what's in the packet is supplemental material that goes into drafting those regulations. But those first 26 pages, if you look at those and can comment. And Chair Jones, I just want to point out some of the backgrounds of the people on the ad hoc committee that we are this is kind of different. I've got a master's in environmental studies, a law degree, a BA in biology. Karen has a PhD in geography and specializes in soils, and is also with the volunteer fire department in Willow Township. Sharon is with horticulture. I mean, we're looking at this from a lot of perspectives, and our last member, Gary Rexroad, is giving us some good insights as far as technology and business. So we're trying to cover all the bases and bring people in. But if you look at that and you still have questions, please raise them if there's anything holes in what we're doing, because we can bring people in and hear from them. The issue of pollinators kind of goes both ways. You know, if we can stick with native grasses and minimize or not have pesticide, herbicide use, I think we could have an increase of surface area, which can actually have a benefit. But we're also going to have some drawbacks from the structures themselves. So I don't know how it all balances out. I don't think anybody really does. These things are growing in size as time goes on. This is one of the larger ones. I know there's some of comparable size. We have a chart, also a list of large solar facilities. And I'll just point out, as far as the airport, this was interesting. Just recently, it looks like somebody is looking into having about 2,000 acres of this around the Kansas City airport. And I imagine suddenly we're going to bring the FAA into it with regulations. So whatever happens here is subject to a lot of other governmental agencies and regulations, and which will be incorporated by reference. And like just our meeting with the fire chiefs and emergency management is raising a lot of issues about battery storage, the requirement for yearly inspections, yearly trainings of emergency responders. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on what's happening here. And we're also discussing how we might build into these regulations certain trigger events that might require a review and modification of the regulations, which also goes into, we know we're going to have at least like 5-year review periods. We're talking about having the conditional use permit go for 20 years. The industries are pushing for 30 because of they claim for financing issues. But I'll also say that the leases out there right now are for 30 years with options to extend in 10-year increments. So we're talking about regulations and structures that could outlive all of us. So that's why we're trying to be very careful here. And then we have to, what happens when we take them out? How do we get it back? Because we're talking about underground cables. What do we do with those? So as I said, lots and lots of things have come up as Sharon pointed out. You go through those regulations, you can see what we've been looking at and references, and we're still waiting for some language back from the fire chiefs and emergency management that we might have to put in. And it's an ongoing process. So, and also from county legal to hear about what we can we modify rules as we go, or what procedure that would require. So I hope we've covered a lot of those areas, but that's why we're coming out and trying to talk to as many people as possible, because being so close to it, we might be missing something and important, and that's what we are looking for.
This is Stan Rasmussen again with the Sustainability Advisory Board. Jasmine, I think you put a link in the chat for the Planning Commission packet that Planning Commissioner Carpenter was referring to. I tried to click on it and it says it's a Zoom link and wants me to leave this Zoom page to go to a new Zoom page. So okay. I'm not sure it's
I will get a better link for you.
Are we looking at the August 23rd, 2021 agenda item report, Planning Commission?
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. No, I was trying to link to the November 5th Planning Commission meeting. That agenda wasn't posted when we posted this agenda, so we didn't have a link at that point, but I will just include the link in the minutes, but also I'll put it in the chat here to the meeting agenda, and then you can scroll down and find the that agenda item for more details. Let's try this.
This is Steve Cramer, Advisory Board. I am looking at an August 23rd Planning Development Services. That's no longer relevant. It's hundreds of pages.
Planning, Mary Miller, planning. Yeah, when you get to the November agenda, it should also have links to the materials and to the meeting for November or August and June. So they are still relevant. That will show you that what we were discussing at that time. And when you look at our draft language, it's colored because we have the basic language we started with. And then in blue, I believe, is language that the Planning Commission recommended. In green is changes that the county engineer recommended. And I may be wrong. Let me look here. Red is changes made after the June Planning Commission meeting. Green was changes made by staff with additional research or based on the county engineer. And then anything in purple, those are changes that the ad hoc committee made. And so our goal is that after the November meeting, after we discuss with them and get their feedback, we'll go back and take out this coloring. And so the next time we take the draft back, just the new language will be colored. So it's pretty confusing right now with all the different colors, but it's incorporating what was in the August information. And I just wanted to mention that there's one new feature. We're trying something new because we have so much research documents, and that it would be overwhelming to just add them all to the packet. So Ben Harris with Zoning and Codes is making a spreadsheet where it has a directory and you can go in and find the subject. So he's divided it by topic, and then there's links to all our research material. So rather than 500 pages of materials, you'll just have that one page where you can go in and find things, and we'll just, if this works well, we'll keep adding to it. We've never done it like this before, but I think it's going to be really user-friendly.
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission, that came out to the ad hoc committee from Ben this afternoon, and I played with it. It is easy to use, and it's pretty impressive. It's, you go down the column, and it's all the different topic areas, and like I said, and then going out to the right is multiple links, and I'm sure this will just continue to grow. And I will also say, if any of you have any links to articles or papers that you think would be helpful for us, please send them to Mary, because then they will get into the materials for us to look at also. So you don't have to limit yourself just to showing up at a meeting. Send us written comments, send us any articles or anything else you want us to look at.
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. I just also wanted to add that this work is so important because of the discussions that you all have been having as a board over these last couple of years around energy and clean energy specifically. As this community tries to move closer to those goals of 100% renewable energy, we know that we're going to need large scale utility solar in addition to wind. And we know that, you know, the federal conversation around this is moving in this direction too. So we know that Kansas is an ideal spot to increase the amount of renewable energy in our community and the country. And Douglas County has an opportunity to be a leader in this space and do it in a way where we are balancing all these different values. And so I just want to, again, express gratitude to the staff that have been working on this, the ad hoc committee, the planning commission, and everybody in the community that's given input so far, because we know that as Douglas County is working on this, we know that Johnson County is working on it, Sedgwick County is working on it, and others are going to look at the regulations that this county puts together. So I just wanted to, you know, bring it back to the priorities that this group has been talking about for years. And this is the, you know, the application of some of the policy recommendations that you've been talking about. So
This is Mako Quad Chair. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for your presentation, for all the information. Definitely look through that, and we'll, maybe as a board we can send some more questions after we've reviewed and discussed things. But I would like to open it up for public comment, and so I'm going to let Jasmine take over and see who has public comment.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, this is Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. If you are on Zoom, there's no one here in City Commission room, but if you are on Zoom and would like to give public comment on this item, if you would raise your Zoom hand. I see one so far, and then I will call on you and you can turn your camera on if you're able, and then you will be able to share. So Noah, you're up first, and then Dorothy will go.
Hi, my name is Noah Huckster. I'm a resident of Lawrence. I'm also a member of Sunrise here in Lawrence. I just want to say I'm really encouraged by what I've heard so far. The balanced approach between, both sustainable energy and sustainable environmental practices is really encouraging. It sounds like you guys are doing your homework, which I really appreciate. I guess I really, like you said, I should probably read that document. It probably has these answers. But I guess my question is, when you're talking about potential environmental degradation, what are the potential consequences of that? If a user, allows a solar panel to have voltage leak into the soil, or the soil quality significantly decreases, what are the next steps, right? Because we can have standards, but they're only meaningful if we can enforce them. Thank you.
Thanks, Noah. Dorothy, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm doing what Karen's doing, double duty in my car today. Dorothy Barnett. I direct the Climate and Energy Project, Kansas-based nonprofit. I know most of you on the call, and I've addressed the Sustainability Board on different topics before. The thing that I want to say is, number one, I value and appreciate the hard work of the Planning Commission and of the Ad Hoc Committee. I was able to listen in on one of the agrivoltaic conversations, and it's obvious that you all are doing good work and doing your homework. One of the things that I want to just say, though, is if Douglas County ends up putting in regulations that halt in some way large-scale solar, utility-scale solar, in Kansas, in what is considered the most climate-friendly county in the state, I'm not sure that we get it built anywhere. And we know that in order to meet our climate goals, we have to have all renewable energy. You all have been very clear in your support for 100% renewable energy. And we've seen, good development across the country. It's possible. You can do it. You can do it with agriculture practices intact. But what we really have to be cautious of, I think, is allowing fear or misinformation to guide our decisions. And so I just would caution you that some of the rhetoric we're hearing is just that, it's rhetoric. It's not based in science, it's not based in fact, it's based in misinformation. And so appreciate the due diligence that you're doing. Please keep doing that, but make sure that it's not just somebody's opinion. Make sure that it's information based in fact. We know that Kansas is poised to get perhaps 11 gigawatts of utility scale solar over the next decade. Evergy wants to put in 3.2 gigawatts. We want them to retire their coal plants, but if we say no to large scale renewable energy, I'm not sure we are able to retire the coal plants. So just appreciate you thinking about that, and always happy to be a resource with information that can be utilized as you make decisions further.
Thanks, Dorothy. This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. Just another invitation, if anyone else on Zoom would like to give public comment on this item, raise your Zoom hand, or if you don't know what that is, just turn your camera on and wave to me. And that way I'll know that you're up next. Okay, I see Michael Allman, you're up.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Michael Allman. I'm with Sustainability Action Network. I want to thank the Planning Commission and the Ad Hoc Committee itself for being so thorough in your research. I do want to point out, though, that this is not a zero-sum game. It's not, as Ms. Barnett pointed out, saying no or yes to solar. It's a matter of how we balance all these elements. And the Ad Hoc Committee is doing a wonderful job looking into that. I also want to point out that the Sustainability Advisory Board yourself, you have a long history of promoting sustainable food in our county and preserving our excellent world-class soils. You've worked on developing the urban agricultural regulations as well as a county food systems plan. This is not just about renewable energy. We do want renewable energy. We want as much as we can get, but the question is how we do it, not whether we do it, it's how we do it. And one of the main questions of that how is a matter of scale. NextEra has proposed a 500 megawatt facility that spans both Johnson County and Douglas County. If you look at their website, it shows an area that they would cover with glass of 3,500 acres. The rule of thumb is that 1 megawatt of solar energy generally requires 7 acres. It all depends on the efficiency of the collectors, of course, but that's the rule of thumb. So 500 megawatts times 7 is 3,500 acres. If you look at the map, that covers 5.5 square miles. So utility scale is one thing. Overbuilding and excess scale is another thing. There's a person who has information in the Planning Commission packet. He's from California, and I'm not sure why he's pitching in on this, but he's indicated that there are currently 969 utility scale solar projects in the United States. If you go to the packet and look at that list, you'll see that there's maybe a dozen or 2 dozen that are not even 500 megawatts. They're the maximum of 300 megawatts. Most of them are 125, 250 megawatts. Other than those 2 dozen or so, all the other utility scale projects on that list are 10, 15, 25 megawatts. This is an enormous project that NextEra is proposing. And what the Planning Commission is trying to determine is how do we protect our prime soils and keep the solar at a scale that will preserve that prime soil, as well as doing agrivoltaics, growing specialty crops under the collectors, not between the collectors, which is a good thing to do, but also under the collectors. That's a matter of design. And one final thought, Jim Carpenter just mentioned, for one thing, and this is true, some of these structures could outlive all of us. When they talk about decommissioning, that's something that might happen in 20 or 30 years when the collectors lose efficiency. Well, based on the investment proportion of any given project, the collectors themselves are probably 20 to 25% of the overall cost. In 30 years, those collectors are going to be replaced for a fraction of what the original project cost. And those collectors are also going to be probably twice as efficient as today's collectors. So potentially the solar company or the utility, whoever owns the project, will see their profit double or triple if they keep the project going. They're really not going to just take the collectors down and walk away and decommission it. Most of these projects, once they're in, will be in for a very long time, and that agricultural soil might be very nice soil, but it's not going to be productive ever until those collectors go away. So the question of decommissioning is kind of a red herring. If the landowner who is leasing the land wants to pull out and have them removed, then they'll be decommissioned. But it's very unlikely that the solar company itself will walk away from that potential enormous amount of profit. So the devil's in the details, the devil's in the scale, in balancing all the various factors. Keep in mind that sustainability, it has many faces and includes many elements of the way we live, and our energy source is only one of those. So let's do this in a way that we can have them maybe smaller scale, spread around more, more available in different parts of the county. That's the kind of standards that the Planning Commission will be coming up with. So thank you very much, all of you, for your effort.
Thank you, Michael. Karen, I saw you unmute. Did you want to add anything?
No, I'm sorry. My internet is just unstable.
Okay. Kim, I see your hand is up. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add, if it hadn't been mentioned.
Well, make sure you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Kim Kreiner-Ritchie, Lawrence Douglas County Sustainability Office. I just wanted to add for the Sustainability Advisory Board, in follow-up to Michael's comments, that the Food Policy Council will be in the work session with you next week on the 18th. And so, some of these prime soil concerns, food system plan concerns, those will be in part of your informed conversation next week, as well with those stakeholders coming with those values to the conversation. So just to let you know that that's going to be added context that you will share in as well.
Thanks, Kim. Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment on this item? As a reminder, you can raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or you can turn on your camera and wave to me to show me you want to participate. Kira.
I don't know if, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys answered this when I was out of the room, but is there a city or an example that I can read up on of a town or a county or a state where you really like what they've done and their parameters are analogous to Lawrence, and it's an example of what you consider a good job, so I can read up on that? Thanks, guys.
Karen Willie, Planning Commissioner. I feel like we're more learning from other people's mistakes. And I think that we aim to be the community that people look to, that's the solar that they like to have. So my goal, my personal goal for this is that not only will we end up with solar, usually solar in Douglas County, but that we will want a second one. So that's the goal, is that we do our regulations correctly so that it's something that I would welcome.
Thanks, Karen and Kira. Is there anyone else that has comments on this item?
Well, Jim Carpenter, Planning Commissioner, with regard to that last question, when the spreadsheet comes out with links, there are links to many other communities and what they've done. So you could look through that. And I will also just have to give a plug to Mary and planning staff here that when they met with both Johnson and Sedgwick County planners, Sedgwick County already had some regulations in place, but we were pointing out things that they'd never thought of. So they're pretty much scrapping them and starting over. And we got the same kind of comment from the companies that build these things, the engineering firms, that we were asking questions that they never thought about before. So I think those are indications that we're on the right track in trying to cover all the different issues. I would just, again, encourage any of those of you that are really into endurance meetings, endurance contest, watch the Planning Commission meeting Monday night, and that could help inform our conversation next Thursday with you.
Sharon, go ahead.
Sharon Ashworth, Planning Commission. Just one little note on the heel of that is that when you look at the links from other communities, there are some other farming communities, agricultural-based communities on that list, Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that. So just pay attention to where that information is coming from, because a lot of times the references happen to be where most of the solar is out west, and that's a very different environment. And very different systems out there. So just make sure that what we're trying to do is focus on the agricultural nature of our situation here, as opposed to a lot of the Western areas.
Thank you, Sharon. This is Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. Any other comments on this item? I do not see any. So I just wanted to circle back about the ad hoc committee invitation to the Sustainability Advisory Board to join the conversation on the 18th. So that is an invitation to SAB members as well as Food Policy Council members, like Kim mentioned earlier. So if this is a topic that you as a Sustainability Advisory Board member are interested in digging into more, and participating in greater conversation, then you are welcome to join that meeting. And as Jim said, as long as there are less than 6 members, then that will not be a quorum. So if there are 5 of you that are interested in that, then you're welcome to join. If it becomes 6, then that triggers a public meeting. And so that's a whole nother game. So I will send the information about the ad hoc committee timing to you all. And then if you'll let me know that you plan to attend so that I can monitor that quorum challenge.
This is Makakwa, Chair. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Thank you to the ad hoc committee. Thank you, everybody in the public, for showing up. It's really encouraging that everybody's working towards the same things. You know, we're trying to do what's best for Lawrence. We're trying to be sustainable minded. We're trying to learn from other people's mistakes. So I like that everybody's working towards the same thing. I like, thank you, Jim, for giving the background of the ad hoc committee and the expertise you guys bring to that committee. It helps me feel like you guys are covering everything that, Lawrence citizens would be concerned about. So, so thank you so much for all the hard work. I look forward to being at the meeting on November the 18th to hear more about this project. My question to you guys, the committee now, is how can the Sustainability Advisory Board help you? How can we support this project moving forward? How can we as a board contribute?
Jim Carpenter, Planning Commission. That's a huge question. You all have your areas of expertise also, and I'd like to have you look at things and bring your areas of expertise, look at it through that, and raise any questions or issues. We haven't really gotten into the conversation about how many, the total area that might be covered by these in the county. We're only, right now we're just at the point of drafting the regulations under which a company can apply for a conditional use permit. We're kind of capping that area at 1,000 acres of solar panels, which means it'll be bigger in order to accommodate all of those. And each one will have its own challenges to it. So after we get the regulations in place, if we start getting applications, it would be very helpful for either the committee or the board or individuals on the board to be involved in that process and bring your perspectives to bear. Because we're going to hear quite often, I don't want that near me. I don't want to see that in place of this open field I've seen all my life. Those types of things we hear quite often. But we're really trying to look at being sustainable and becoming more and more sustainable, both in food security and in energy production as we go forward. And those are hard things for individuals to contemplate. It really takes a group effort. So I would hope that you all keep up with this, get involved as these come up, even if it's not near you, watch it and add your perspectives to it. Beyond that, I'm not quite sure what else to say. Maybe Karen or Sharon have other things that they'd like to hear back from individual members, or Mary. Mary is like the great note taker of the world. It's amazing. We have our discussions and lo and behold, they're reduced to changes in the regulations. And it's been quite a process, and we've really gotten to know each other and the planning staff for the county much better. And I think it's been a great way to go. I think it can only help the whole community. But as you know, membership changes on these boards and commissions. And that's why it's important that even if you're off the board, please stay involved and watch these things, because you're here at the creation of these regulations. You're going to have more knowledge than people that come after us, because we're the institutional memory. So please bring that up as we go forward in the future too.
Madam Chair, if I may, Karen Willie, Planning Commissioner. The more you can read through the regulations and offer suggestions on those details, is that a good enough setback? Or is that the right number of acres? Just some of those details, which, we've had a lot of big picture discussions and we have a lot of values discussions, but what we really need is to come up with, the nitty gritty that we can, that protects our community, but also, allows for, a reasonable company to come in and provide the resource that we need. So we're very glad for any input that you'd like to give us.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for coming and presenting all this information. Jasmine said she would provide everybody with the information for the upcoming meeting so that whoever is here on the public comment can be involved, SAB board members can be involved. Thank you everybody so much for all your hard work and for coming and explaining this. That's another meeting where you have to present all your information. Okay, Jasmine, is it time to move on to the next agenda item?
Thanks. So.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to leave, but I really appreciate it. And like Jim said, feel free to email us or get your comments to us anyway. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. The next agenda item, this is Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. The next agenda item is some administrative items. So this is really just to check in about membership. There are a couple terms expiring at the end of this year. Steve Cramer and Sarah are both eligible for reappointment. So if you're interested in being reappointed and aren't familiar with that process, just let me know and I'll walk you through it. And then Kay Johnson was recently reappointed to a term that expires in 2024. So congratulations, Kay, welcome back. And then also there is one opening currently. So there's one spot that's open now. And then, you know, depending on what Steve and Sarah decide to do, there may be more than one. So just stay tuned for that. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Subcommittee reports. I will say that election season is over, so I didn't win, but that's okay. You know, I do intend to continue working with our commission on sustainability efforts. We got sustainability in the dialogue for each candidate and for as a talking point discussion throughout the campaign. So saying that, I would like to hold the climate change subcommittee meetings. It seems like Wednesday from 4:30 to 6 seems like a good time. We wanted to incorporate some of the groups that told us about their availability. So next Wednesday, being the 17th, will be our first climate change subcommittee for the single-use plastic bag ordinance. We'll be looking at language, reviewing the language, and depending on how successful that meeting is, we will potentially be holding a second meeting so that we're not forced to rush through an hour and a half to get something written. So then hopefully by the next Sustainability Advisory Board meeting, we'll have some language that we can vote on and then take to City Commission for the next meeting. That's the goal. So November 17th, 4:30 to 6, we will be holding our climate change subcommittee for the single bag use ordinance. If you want to come, we will, I'm sure Jasmine will set up a Zoom link. We'll also give the option for meeting in person. I think, can we hold it here at the City Commission office?
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Sustainability Director. We will have to check the schedule. So that's my initial answer. It also, I guess if it's going to be a hybrid, then that we'll have to make some decisions about what facilities could accommodate that. So we won't have to live stream it, but and need all of this set up, but we would need the capability to do a hybrid meeting. So let me look into it and I'll get back with you.
Okay. I guess the secondary option would be like the library. We could potentially reserve a room in the library for that. So we will work on that and get the details sent out. Please let us know if you would like to be included on the email, the link. We'll have it up on the Sustainability Advisory Board page, I'm sure. And then that's why I wanted to give the dates out now so that we could have that listed. So any other subcommittee reports?
I have a question for you and also a subcommittee report. This Kay Johnson, Sustainability Advisory Board member. This morning I sent an email to SAB members requesting that we have a consideration of our community partners, some input from the grocery stores that are, that some have already made changes, some are in the process of making changes about their plastic bags situation. I think it's important for us to know where they stand before we make language determinations on what we would like to see. I think it's important for us to ask the grocery stores what they're doing so that we can take that into consideration. They're the biggest impact to our community with the plastic bags. There's probably other grocery stores. I just suggested we have a panel discussion. I would really like to see that before we go forward with specific language, if that could be worked into some of the meetings. And I am on the Deb Ford, and I, along with Kira Makakwa, were listed on that original subcommittee list.
Thank you, Kay. This is Makakwa, Chair. So in the past, I remember, and this was prior to this board, when I was first on the board, I don't know if we have access to that information, Jasmine, in the archives, but there was a grocery store like a representative from from Kroger grocery stores, I believe is what it was. And they came and presented to SAB when we were looking at this issue prior. I don't know if I can invite him back or if we have any contacts to invite to the subcommittee meetings. But I agree, Kay, if we can get somebody to come and speak with us on the subcommittee and then, potentially have them to a SAB meeting, that would be great.
Thank you. I would be glad to reach out to the various grocery stores. I do have because last month I did contact Dillon's in Hutchinson. I have a contact there. That person is willing to make a presentation or be part of a panel, particularly if it's a remote meeting. It'd be easier for us to include people that are from out of town in a remote situation than rather in person. But I'd be glad to contact the other stores that I mentioned. I've got a contact at the Merck, and but I can make other contacts if others don't have suggestions for those contacts.
Thank you so much, Kay. Yeah, this is Mako Kwa, Chair. If you want to invite them now that we have a date and a time for this meeting, if you would like to invite them to join us, that would be great. I think having their input would be really informative.
I think it would be better if we have our own meeting first and develop a list of questions for a panel so that we're really specific about what we want to hear from them. I'd rather them not have to listen to our just questions to each other. I think their time is valuable, and if we could meet first and then come up with an advance a date, then they can plan accordingly. Whoever we talk to, we can plan with them accordingly, and then have a specific time frame so that they know what is expected of them if they can make it. That's my preference, if we could do that.
Yeah, I could agree. I agree to that. So we could have our meeting next week. We could invite them and see what time their schedules allow for a meeting, and the subcommittee immediate members can meet with them, go over the language that we're looking at, and then ask them their inputs, and then possibly hold a second meeting for community members to come in and relook at that language before we present it.
I'm just thinking a second meeting for the community partners, the grocery store, so that, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't include the public at the same time. I mean, that way it's just a real distinct, we need to set up a date and a time. And if it's 2 weeks from Wednesday or whatever, it doesn't matter to me, just so that I've got a date when I talk to them. If they can't make it, maybe somebody else can.
Okay, so let's hold a meeting next week for subcommittee members and public. And then 2 weeks from next week, let's plan to meet with the grocery store representatives that you invite, and then review the language that we come with.
Is that Thanksgiving?
Oh, is it? Oh.
The week of Thanksgiving?
Let's see. That's the 24th. Yeah, that's the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think we probably should push it off into December.
Okay,
Yeah.
so December the 1st? Because the 8th is the next SAB meeting. And it doesn't have to be a Wednesday. It doesn't have to be a Wednesday for that meeting to take place. It was just seemed convenient for some of the groups that wanted to come that Wednesday worked for the public meeting, the subcommittee meeting. So just find out what day works for the grocery store representatives. We can get that information to Jasmine as early as possible, have it on the books, and let people know that that's when that meeting is going to take place.
Okay, cool.
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. I would recommend that if that Wednesday time works best for the committee, that you start with that as an ask to those commercial reps as a starting point. And then if it turns out that nobody can nobody from that group can attend at that time, then you adjust, just because I feel like it'll be challenging to match schedules the other way around.
I think you're right. And so December 1st would be the date that we'd be looking at for the community partners meeting.
Yes. So I have Wednesday, December 1st, 4:30 to 6:30.
Okay.
I see Michael Allman has his hand up. Did you want to add something, Michael?
Yeah, please. As far as the grocery stores go, well, now where did my, oh, here it is. One of the grocery store, Hy-Vee, was engaged in that process whenever that took place a couple of years ago. And the man there who manages it is Brett Albers. And he has some ideas about, at least at that time, about the bags. So his number is 832-0044.
Maybe, Michael, would you send that to Jasmine and then I can get that?
Oh, sure. Could I put that in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so that is the date for the Climate Change Subcommittee. Looks like Jasmine has that on the books and that will be up at a later date on Friday, looks like. Everybody check back to the website on Friday. Kay, you said that you had a subcommittee report.
I do. Kay Johnson, Sustainability Advisory Board member and team leader for the city operations. We, our group, small but mighty, we had a meeting with the Parks and Rec, a representative from Parks and Rec yesterday, and it was a really good meeting. I would encourage you, if you're interested in finding out about city operations, these meetings are really good because we're able to meet one-on-one with someone or multiple staff members, and they can actually tell us specific information about their groups. And Jasmine also participated in Allison Kuntz. And we talked about that there are 54 parks in Lawrence. That's a lot more than I thought. And we looked at their website. They've got a lot of information on their website. They focused a few years ago on energy efficiency lighting. And fortunately, they have a horticultural person that is looking at reduced pesticides at their different parks. They have issues, of course, with security and public spaces. So they can't just totally go to native grasses. They have lots of issues with parks and safety, but we learned an awful lot, and we talked about the Arboretum and a lot of the programming that they do at Prairie Park with students. And you know, we're very fortunate to have such a department with their interests and so much in sustainability. I did ask about gray water, and the person we were talking to, which was Marty Woolard, she was not aware whether or not the plants that are watered in the downtown area or other trees located in the circles, roundabouts, whether or not they're watered with gray water. I would like to see some gray water use for that type of activity, but we got a lot of really great information. So that's my report.
That's
and
great.
The next meeting, which is, a month from tomorrow, which I don't have the date. Jasmine, you may have it in front of you. We would like to meet with the, it's the Metropolitan Planning Group. Let's see, what is their actual title? And this, of course, depends on whether or not Jasmine can make, get people from other groups to provide a speaker. It's the transportation. It's the
long range transportation plan or planning group. So
yes, they're not actually a city group. They're mostly
it's the metropolitan. This is Stan Rasmussen, SAB member. It's probably the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the
yes.
MPO, and it's an organization that, or it's a entity that.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, we lost Stan.
We lost Stan altogether. Yes, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and is he back on? Yeah, there he is. Well,
yeah, sorry about that. It's an organization, if I remember, because I used to sit on it. If you have a community of a certain size, then to be eligible for certain DOT funding, you need to have an MPO, and it's a combined organization with the KDOT, county, and city of representatives on there.
and the nice thing about that, right now they've got several surveys out, so I'll try to find that information because those surveys are for a walkable community and communications, and I'll try to get that to Jasmine so she can send out to everyone, because I think it's either this Friday or Monday is their last date for taking information. I was able to talk to them at another meeting this week, so I know about that already.
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. Yes, and in fact, there's a meeting happening right this moment that they're getting feedback for that process. So I will be happy to send that information out to the board.
Thank you. That'd be great, Jasmine. Appreciate it.
All right, this is Makakwa, Chair. If there's no other subcommittee reports, we can move on to staff reports from Jasmine.
All right, this is Jasmine Moore, Sustainability Director. For the staff report today, I want to focus on our climate action plan. We are rolling out all the public engagement efforts. Want to highlight, as I mentioned before, that we're partnering with the Sunrise Project and the Climate and Energy Project, and they have hired 10 folks from the community who are tasked with doing some of that deeper story collection type of engagement so that we can really hear the stories about why climate is such an important issue to plan for on the community level. So I wanted to share my screen so that you can see some of the resources that we've put together. So this is our project page, and you can get there by just going to lawrenceks.org/climate. And it's a site that is intended to be pretty easy to navigate. We have a community survey. So really the most important thing you can do is take this community survey to get started. We also have materials in Spanish as well. So we have a whole Spanish site, as well as most of the materials and outreach materials are in Spanish. This site is organized in different sections. One is just understanding why we're doing this plan, how people can get engaged by building the plan together, and then getting into the data of climate risks and vulnerabilities, as well as resilience. And then, of course, a way to contact us. So we have a video that's like a minute long to explain the process, in case that would be an easy way to share with others about what it is and what it's about. The About section outlines how it's connected to other planning efforts, specifically our long-range transportation plan. So those planning commissioners that we just saw and heard from, it's directly connected to this larger work and larger conversations that we've had in our community. And there's a link to the even larger regional climate action plan that was done for the Kansas City metro area plus Douglas County. So there's lots of great information in there. Just as a reminder, that's really high level guidance and provides somewhat of a menu of options. And our process is to create a locally specific climate action plan that makes sense for our community. We have a timeline here, which we've talked through before, and the guiding values for our plan. And then I wanted to highlight the engagement that's happening right now. One is the community survey. Last I checked, I think we had about 250 surveys in so far, and more are coming in by the day. So if you haven't taken the survey, please do. It's just, I think it's 11 questions. And then we want some demographic information so that we can track who's missing, whose voices are missing from participation, so that we can target those, so those people can have input as well. And then the Climate Ambassador Program is one that I want to highlight. I've talked about this before, but this is a way for anybody to get involved in the planning process and bring somebody else into the process as well. So the Climate Ambassador Program is for anybody in the community who cares about this issue and is willing to have a conversation with their neighbor, their family, someone they work with. These are intended to be conversations, not debates. These are really set up in a way where they can be conversational, you can learn together, and then talk about what makes sense for our community to be focused on. So we put together a guidebook that's really just 10 pages, but it outlines the different activities that you can do as a climate ambassador. I'm just going to zoom in here. And there's 5 activities that we've outlined, and we invite you to, if you don't like the sound of any of these, make up your own. We put together this kind of quick reference guide so you can see how much time are these going to take. So you can make a personalized climate action plan with a group. We recommend that for ages 10 and up. And this activity could take about 15 minutes. Or you could do some conversation starters, and that could be, for ages as young as 5 and up. And that can take as short as 5 minutes. We have some book club options and recommended reading. One of those books is Braiding Sweetgrass, and that the author is actually speaking, I think it's 7:30 tonight, because that book is also the common book for KU and Haskell this year. And so there's lots of activities and conversations around that book. We also have an activity where we invite you to watch and discuss something with a group. So that could be a video, it could be a podcast, it could be another form, it could be a video game that you play together. And so that is probably going to take more than 30 minutes, and we recommend it for ages 10 and up. But I will say that I did this with my family, and we watched the Lorax, and we had discussion about that. And so really it depends on what activity and what movie you pick, if you're going to do a movie or a video, but so that age range could vary there. And then Photo Voice is one where we invite folks to go into their community and take pictures of things that really speak to connection with the environment, or something that is a challenge for you in your environment. Something that because sometimes we know that pictures can be worth 1,000 words. What are the things that you are observing in your daily lives that you want to share with others that may actually have a policy implication that you would want to share with the people that sit in this room every Tuesday and make decisions about our community? So each of these it links to a page with a 1-pager of instructions about how to lead the activity. And so really step-by-step instructions. And then the last instruction is always tell us how it went, because it's not enough just to have these conversations. We would love to hear what is coming from these conversations in our community. And then if you don't like any of those and you have your own idea, we invite you to do that and let us know how that goes, because those are the types of conversations that can have an impact on what's included in our climate action plan and help us understand the personal connection that you have to this topic. I also want to share an example of the conversation starters. This is something that is really easy. It can be done, via group text, or I've been using them to start meetings, just to do check-ins with people and ground us in this work. So essentially, we have 30 slides here with questions. And so pick what question works for you, what you're connected with, decide who you want to talk to or involve in this. Make sure that you're listening with respect. And then again, tell us how it went. Tell us, what came from that conversation. These are a few examples of how these might look. So one example is, when was the last time that weather disrupted your plans for work, school, events, or other things? And what happened? Another one example is, the sky can be many different colors. What color of the sky makes you feel calm and why? And then a little bit deeper, what color of the sky makes you most worried and why? And what does the color of the sky tell you about the weather? And so, some of these aren't as obvious hitting you over the head with climate, but I have found that some of these are, there's always a connection. It may not be obvious, but when we talk about some of these things, like the sky question, when some of the stories that I've heard is that beautiful sunsets are very calming, but sometimes people also bring up that oftentimes those beautiful sunsets are the result of wildfires or other air quality challenges. And so it's a two-sided coin there of, I know this is a beautiful thing that I'm experiencing, but I know that it's because of something else that is not so great. So especially, I'm just thinking back to August of this year when the wildfire smoke was coming from the West Coast all the way down to Kansas, and that was having an impact on the color of our sky. Similarly, when we talk about your favorite food, what is your connection to that? When do you eat it? And then a little more like, have you ever had a hard time getting your favorite food when you wanted and why? And thinking about what's at play that makes it challenging. We're experiencing some of that with food, with the supply chain challenges right now. And we know that those are the types of disruptions that we will experience with more climate change and the extreme weather associated with it. So these are some as warm-ups, and then they get a little deeper what do you hope will be different about this community in 5 years? What will be the same? What do you hope is the same about this community? What is your relationship with the environment and how would you change that? And some that get more specific into climate issues. So I wanted to, give those as examples of easy ways to get involved in this process and easy ways to be a climate ambassador. We have a goal of getting 50 people signed up to be climate ambassadors before the holiday break for Thanksgiving. So I would like to challenge each of you as board members to sign up to be an ambassador. There's you just go to the website and there's a button that says become an ambassador and click on that. And then think about what activity you want to do with your circle or your network. This is an opportunity where you can do as much or as little in this space as you want to. So if you want to sign up to be a climate ambassador and do one event, great. If you want to sign up to be a climate ambassador and have that conversation with 10 people, wonderful. So we will take as much help as you can give, and we're really looking to the community to participate and cultivate these smaller conversations around climate, because that's often how we can make change, is by talking to people that we know about things that we care about. So that is the main update on our climate action plan. And as I mentioned, the community coordinators that are employed through the Sunrise Project and the Climate and Energy Project are doing work right now. So they are collecting stories, and we're excited to hear, who they are reaching out to and the stories that they're collecting right now. So I wanted to also pause and see if there are any questions, or if anyone is ready to sign up. I will make that happen right now. Any questions? Okay, that's what I have for staff update.
Steve
Thank
Cramer
you.
from the advisory board. I do applaud the effort because I think all of this is without merit unless we educate in every way we can, from the plastic bags to the solar collection farms. Education is absolutely paramount if we're going to do our job. People have to understand why we're doing what we're doing and recommending what we're recommending. And this is a great way to do it, grassroots. Nice job.
This is Mako Chair, and I'm super excited about all the work that Jasmine and her team have done for this. Being able to see what our climate action plan was and then what it's becoming is awesome. It's, what I envisioned with the community engagement and feedback, and I'm really happy about all the work that's being done on this. So thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I see Michael has his hand up. I also saw that Deb was unmuted. Deb, did you want to add anything?
I do. I applaud the effort as well, and I went to volunteer, but I got that odd. This page appears to be missing. So if you can sign me up as an ambassador, please do.
Will do. Okay, Michael.
Hey, thank you, Jasmine. I want to thank you for taking such a comprehensive approach to this planning process. It's great. But I have a question. When I answered the survey myself, it said survey number 1. That seems to indicate you're going to have some more surveys. If so, how many?
Good question, Michael. This is the first. We aren't sure how many at this point, but we know that there will be more. So in that first survey, one of the things that we ask is, what areas are you most interested in giving input into as we develop this climate action plan? And so it talks about different topic areas like energy, transportation, food systems, those types of things. And so that will also help indicate, how many surveys you may be a part of. If you signed up for all those things, then you'll get several opportunities to give us more input. But even if you gave us your email address, we'll reach back out to you, but also make the next surveys publicly available. So we really want to have this time, especially this fall, to gather responses, see where things fall. And this is where we're being using emergent strategy to be reactive to what we hear as well. Because if there's some areas that we know we need to dig into more, we're going to spend more time there and we're going to do more there. So that's probably not satisfactory to you, Michael, because it's not a definite answer, but we are trying to be responsive to the initial information that we get. And then we're definitely going to be reaching out based on the topics that you said you're interested in, but we're still in that initial phase of collecting information. But I anticipate that as we get into the new year, there will be, more specific opportunities to get into the nitty gritty of some of these, because the first survey, if you haven't taken it yet, we're asking you some pretty broad questions and personal questions. We're asking you, what's your connection to this? How much have you thought about some of these issues? And, you know, what's your personal experience with heating and cooling, for example? What do you like about it, or what would you change about it? How do you get around town? Those types of things help us understand, you know, some of the challenges that we may not have even realized are big pieces of this conversation. And that's what we were hoping to gain from survey number 1, so that we can figure out what the focus needs to be for survey number 2 and 3 and 4.
All right, this is Mako Quad Chair. Does anybody else have any questions for Jasmine? All right, moving on. Future agenda items. We still have invite Indigenous Center to a SAB meeting. I am particularly interested in that. One of the things that, one of the ideas that I had was bringing the Indigenous Center onto a meeting. And this is just my personal idea, is to ask the City Commission to put up a plaque or put up plaques around the Haskell wetlands, explaining the historical significance to it. And the reason why is because not everybody knows in the community this historical significance the wetlands has to Haskell. And 2, there was an issue a few years ago about trying to protect the wetlands, both for a sustainable purpose, but also for historical purposes. And I think that this information can help on both ends. And so that's just an idea that I'm going to be pushing for. I don't know if necessarily the SAB board wants to get on board with that idea, but I think, having a conversation with the Indigenous Center would be a good idea. And so that would be a specific reason to invite them to a SAB meeting. So let me guys know what you think. Looks like Kay wants to talk.
Yes, and Makakwa, I had Kay Johnson, Sustainability Advisory Board member. This is something that I also mentioned to the Parks and Rec group. I am with environmental education. It's really important that you have signage, over our waterways, in our wetland areas. People start to respect the natural resources if they can associate a name with a creek that they go over the bridge, I know they're trying to do a little bit in the parks area, but I'm talking more in the community in general. And so I totally agree with what you're talking about, Makakwa, with all of the wetland areas around. People are walking and riding their bikes and driving, to various amenities that we have in our community, and they will respect it more if they can associate with the history or the name or what's special about that amenity. We have some incredible things in Douglas County, City of Lawrence and Douglas County that we should be putting signage up about. And I know the downside is you got to have some maintenance, but I totally agree, Makakwa, with that.
Thank you, Kay. This is Makakwa, Chair. I think that that would be a great coordinating effort if SAB is on board with that. I can reach out to them and invite them to a meeting, talk about their concerns, potentially present this project. From an environmental perspective, the wetlands are one of the most important aspects of, environmental symbiosis. They, in terms of flooding, in terms of filtration. So I think protecting these wetlands are really important. And that's just one way that we can do that. So, sorry, going on a rant. So the role of, go ahead. Did somebody else want to talk?
Yeah, this is Stan Rasmussen, SAB member. Makakwa, I love the idea of putting out signage. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I just went through fiscal law training as a federal employee, and I don't know the status of Haskell. Is it federal property? If it is, they may not be able under fiscal law to accept gifts. it would be something to ask them. I don't know that the city can pay for things like signage, like say the Corps of Engineers property out here at Clinton Lake. I don't think they can accept gifts of things like signage and stuff like that. Maybe they can, but it'd be something to look into so that you don't go too far down that road and then find out that they can't accept it.
This is Mako Quad Chair. So one of the fortunate things about the Haskell wetlands is they are located in proximity close to Haskell. However, they're owned by both Baker and KU, which was one of the reasons why they were able to be paved over for the South Lawrence Traffic Way. And so there is a communicating effort between KU Baker and Haskell in protecting these wetlands. They have a lot of support in protecting these wetlands. So no, these wetlands, they're not federal property. Haskell is a federal institution. So these plaques would be more to honor Haskell as a community, not so much as, being on federal property, having to adhere to federal laws and regs.
That's good news. Thank you.
And also, I have history with KU in developing a kiosk. KU actually required us when we put my company put it in had a joint project with KU at a biological field station for a bee hotel. They required us to pay for a kiosk. We paid for the signage. They put what they wanted to in it, and then any maintenance we're responsible for. So KU has some pretty stiff, it's a beautiful area, but there are some it's just not a little sign. So.
This is Jasmine, Sustainability Director. Apologies, I usually do a better job keeping track of time. We do have another meeting that starts at 7:30, which is in 2 minutes. So we do need some transition time. So I would just encourage you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, thanks, Jasmine. Sorry about that. So future agenda items, strategic plan, federal infrastructure bill, and sustainability, and then waste streams for residential and commercial customers. If anybody wants to push this forward, please let us know. Sorry we didn't get the member updates this time, but we did get to hear from the public, I'm assuming, about the issues that they were about. We have about a minute if we had any last public comments, maybe 20, 30 seconds for somebody.
If there's anybody that would like to give public comment quickly, please let me know. Okay, I do not see anyone.
All right, with that, then 7:29 p.m. we adjourn for our Sustainability Advisory Board. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to the public for joining us. Look forward to next time.